All right, good afternoon and welcome to the CCSQ Data and Analytics Town Hall. For those who are new, these calls are designed to provide you updates, announcements, and training demos related to the CDR, Databricks, and more. All right, let's just cover some quick administrative announcements before we get started. Please stay muted during the call. If you do have any questions, put them in the chat for us to answer during the Q&A portion at the end of the town hall meeting. We are recording today's call and we will make meeting materials available on Confluence. Now let's cover our agenda for today. First, we will cover the monthly satisfaction survey review and poll. Then we will cover the SAS FIA survey reminder. Later, we will cover access-related issues and then data camp topic surveys. And then finally, we'll cover Q&A. Okay, I'll hand it over to Nicole now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Nicole Dilger, and I am the CCSQ DNA product owner for user services. We're going to be reviewing the monthly satisfaction survey results, and then after that, doing the poll for January. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so these results that we're going to be reviewing are for the month of December. These were the results from the survey that we took during the January town hall. So how satisfied are you with the performance and uptime of the CCSQ DNA environment? For December, we had 60% satisfied, 14% neutral, and 22% dissatisfied. We had a little bit of a decrease in dissatisfaction, which is great. And we had 65 responses from the user community. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. How satisfied are you with the support you receive from the help desk in addressing your questions or issues with the CCSQ DNA environment? For the month of December, we had 57% satisfied, 11% neutral, 15% dissatisfied, and we had 65 responses once again. We did have a little bit of an increase in dissatisfaction for the month of December. How satisfied are you with the resources available from CCSQ Data and Analytics? For the month of December, we had 71% satisfied, 15% neutral, 9% dissatisfied. We did have a 1% reduction there in dissatisfaction, so that's great. And once again, 65 responses. Okay, so for this slide, we just wanted to share, as you know, for the last couple of months, we have updated some of the questions that we are asking the user community. And one of those questions is asking what training materials you would like to see. And so from December's satisfaction survey, we received these following suggestions: Databricks with Python, SAS to Databricks /Python/R conversion, data analysis with claims, Databricks error messages, data dictionaries, consistent updates to known issues/fixes, and community Q&A. So just wanted to share these suggestions that were provided and let you know that we take all of these into consideration as we are planning upcoming training materials, such as training videos or knowledge base articles, and then also use these suggestions for upcoming town halls or data camp. We'll also be doing another survey later in today's town hall where we'll be asking for suggestions related to data camp. So we really want to make sure that we are hearing your feedback from the user community and making sure that we are providing you with the materials that you need to be successful. So what we're going to do now is take the monthly satisfaction survey for the month of January. So if you can think about these questions in framing for the month of January, that would be great. As explained, this survey helps us know how we can improve your experience within the CCSQ DNA environment and community. In a moment, a Zoom poll is going to pop up on your screen. You'll have 5 to 6 minutes to answer those questions, and you just want to make sure that you scroll down to see all the questions. And then obviously complete the questions that are relevant to you. If you don't use our systems, you do not have to participate in the survey. That helps us with not having to parse out unneeded answers. After 5 to 6 minutes has ended, the poll will be closed, and then those results will be used to improve our tools, trainings, and offerings. All right, you should be seeing the survey now on your screen. And we're about halfway through our time in taking this survey. Just a reminder to scroll to the bottom to make sure you're able to answer all of the questions. Okay, about 30 seconds to wrap up any additional responses you may have. Okay, I think we are at time here. Thank you so much for everyone that participated. We really appreciate you providing your feedback. And I think we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right, I'm going to pass things over to Justina to review the SASFIA transition survey reminders.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. As some of you may have already received our call to action email, you're aware of the survey that we're conducting as it relates to the SASFIA decommissioning in the future. One point to take a note, we have created a new email address, which is the sas-transition@qualitynet.org. And wanted to make sure that you didn't end up receiving the email and having it in your spam folder. The call to action notification was sent out on Friday, February 23rd. Please note that the survey was sent out only to CCSQ SASVIA users who have the SASVIA roles associated with their accounts, and it was not sent out to Cubic and or also known as Keys users. We are asking that each organization fills out one survey. And the reason for that is it's going to help us to have a consolidated picture as to where you are, what your needs would be to have such transition be done successfully, and or what pain points it may present to you. And we're asking if possible, please send your responses by Tuesday, March 5th, which is next week. Those are all of the reminders. If you think of any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out in the Slack channels or even in the chat of the town hall. Those are all of my updates. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Justina. Now we're going to turn it over to Derek for access-related issues.
Thanks, Nicole. So as I'm going through this, I am currently unable to actually replicate the errors for some reason, but what I can do is continue to walk through what users have experienced in the past, and if you continue experiencing them, how you can get around those issues. So with that, I can go ahead and share my screen quick. Can everyone see my screen? I think I saw it pop up. So
Yes.
what I'm talking about is the error message where you get insufficient permissions when you're trying to drop a table within SASVIA or within a Databricks notebook. And within the error, it says insufficient permissions, user's not the owner of the particular table. So this is a known issue, even though right now I'm unable to actually replicate it. It's something that we are working through to try and correct, but we do have workarounds out there, just SAS macros, as well as example code that users can run on tables that basically alters the table owner to be equal to the particular group that the user belongs to, so that all of the users and service principals underneath that group then have proper access permissions to be able to alter, modify, overwrite, delete, whatever it might be that you're trying to do to that particular table that you're running into the issues with. So a lot of times what will happen is if a user creates a table within their own Databricks notebook, the ownership of the table is actually assigned to the user account, which is up here within that you can see up in your right-hand corner of the Databricks user interface. And so when that happens, such as just, kind of creating a table here, if another user goes within their own notebook to try and drop this table, or on the SaaS side, if you're trying to drop the table, you may run into an error message around insufficient permissions. User does not own the table. How to get around that on the Databricks side is simply to run an alter table statement on the actual table. And then all you're doing is altering the owner to equal the group that you belong to. In this case, it would be CMMI QDA that I'm running it on, in order to execute this so that other users within my group can drop that table within their own Databricks notebook or within SaaS using the group's service principal account. They can execute this and run to be able to successfully drop it now that the table's been altered. Again, you're probably not going to see it here because I'm unable to replicate it at this time, which we've seen it go in and out. However, when you do create a table on the SaaS side, like I've done here, and if you try and drop it within a Databricks notebook, and again, you're getting that error, insufficient permissions, user is not the owner of the table. What you can do is simply run our new SaaS macro. It's called Hive alter owner, and it takes 3 parameters: the schema or database, the table, and then the group that you want to alter the owner of the table to. And by executing this, again, in the background, it's simply altering the table and setting the owner equal to the group. And on the Databricks side, that now applies to the table, and anybody within a Databricks notebook has the ability to drop that table utilizing the actual Databricks user account that they have. I realize this may not be as super helpful because I'm not able to replicate the issue, but just to be able to understand, where the table is created, whether it's in SaaS or in a Databricks notebook, is going to be important, because if you're running into these issues, if the table was created within the Databricks notebook, the user that created the table needs to use a Databricks notebook to execute the alter table statement here, change the owner. And then once that happens, people can use SaaS to drop the table. Other users within a Databricks notebook can also drop the table. If you are creating the table on the SaaS side and you're trying to drop it within a Databricks notebook, again, it goes back to the SaaS macro, where you just simply need to alter the owner of the table with the new macro, and that will then allow for a user on the Databricks notebook side to be able to then drop the table. Certainly willing to answer any questions around that specific type of issue, knowing it might not be super straightforward since I can't demonstrate exactly what it is.
Hey, Derek, we had one question in the chat that I think you could answer. Can someone who didn't write out the table change the owner?
If the table was written in a Databricks notebook, the table ownership technically belongs to the user who created it. So it's sort of what we're recommending as a best practice. If you go to create a table, whether it's SQL, whether it's Python, you just run a simple statement right after you create the table that just says alter the table, change the owner to the group. And if you want Python syntax, it's right below here, literally just running Spark SQL. And again, one thing to note is that when you are modifying and calling the owner, these are not single quotes, these are actual picks. And that is a specific SQL syntax that it requires when you are altering the table and changing the owner, that you use backticks when calling out what owner or what group you're wanting to set it to. So if somebody on my team creates a table and I go in and I try to drop the table or try and alter or overwrite the table, it could potentially throw me that error that says, insufficient permissions, you're not the owner. So it's the owner who created the table that needs to run this alter table statement and set it to the group. There, everybody within the group has permissions to drop that table, including the service principal account, which is what is being used on the SaaS side, to be able to drop the table.
And then there was one other one related to this. How could they check who owns the table?
Right, that's a great question. So within the Catalog Explorer user interface on Databricks, and I realize this functionality right now is lagging for some people. For others, it may not even be available due to some of the glue migration issues that we're currently working through and resolving. But you can go into the actual database and the actual table itself, be able to visually see who may own the table. In this instance, I already deleted the table, recreate it. Click off. One quick second, it's got to reload it. And again, this lagginess that's happening, if that's even a word, we are well aware of it and we are currently working through it. So we do appreciate your patience and your understanding. And we are working with AWS tech support right now to resolve this issue and get it done, resolved as quickly as we can. Here's the screen. Here you can see the owner is set to my account on the table itself. So a lot of times, if I try to drop this table, if another teammate of mine tries to drop the table, or if I'm trying to drop it on the SaaS side, it will throw a insufficient permissions issue error that you're not the owner of the table. And so that just means that this person just needs to go in and execute the alter table statement, setting the owner equal to the group, where again, it should adjust right there. Now it's the group that owns the table, and all accounts underneath this group would have proper access permissions to be able to go in and modify, override, or drop the table. All right.
Okay, so I know that there are more questions in the chat and we will be getting to those shortly. Before we do that, we are going to be polling you all for topics that you would like to see during Spring Data Camp. So the next CCSQ DNA Data Camp is going to be held this spring on May 15th and 16th. And so we would like to know what you would like to see discussed in the next data camp. So just like the previous survey, in a moment, a Zoom poll is going to come up on your screen to ask you a few questions. All right, you should see that survey now. It is just 3 questions, so you might just have to scroll just a tiny little bit to see all 3, depending on your screen size. But we'll just take a few minutes here to gather your feedback. All right, we'll just take another 30 seconds here for you to wrap up. Okay, I think we are good to close the poll. Thank you, everyone that participated in providing feedback for spring data camp topics. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get back to answering some of the questions that were provided in the chat. So I'm going to go through these and start from the top. So one of the questions was, when will the Hive tables be visible for R coding?
Yeah, so part of the migration that was taken, that took effect, was to allow for that piece of it, to allow for the use of job compute clusters as well as R to be able to directly connect through the CDR. It should be available very, very soon. Again, we're still working through some of the latency issues, but getting out of Hive and going to Glue was the major piece that we had to do in order to open up lots of additional functionality, including our being able to hit CDR tables specifically and have available access controls. So it is in the works. It will be happening in the very near future, after we are able to get through the latency issues and the lagging that's happening.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, so can you clarify, and I know Justina answered this in the chat, but just in case somebody else did not see it, can you clarify, do you want one decommissioning survey per organization or by contract? If we have more than one contract that uses SAS Viya, do we submit multiple surveys? And Justina had responded for organizations that have multiple contracts / organizations in HARP, we're asking for one survey per contract / org that has SAS Viya users. If that is the case for you, then we'd ask that you submit multiple surveys. All right, what are next steps after survey for SAS Viya? I know that Justina also answered this question in the chat. We will be sharing next steps after we have a chance to analyze the survey. We are planning to work with individual organizations if needed. Next question, what is the timeline to transition CASLibs schemas such as iKeys, Casper into Databricks? Most of our work starts with pulling data from there, and we can't transition any of our code until we have access to these schemas in Databricks.
Yeah, we're working actively with the iKeys team on getting the data that is currently in CASLibs to be made available within the CDR outside of those CASLibs. It's actively ongoing so that users of the iKeys data have the ability to get out of iKeys, get out of SAS in CASLibs and be able to utilize Databricks to extract that data, whether you want to use the Spark SQL or Python or R or whatever it will be. I don't really have necessarily a timeline. Just know that it is happening right as of now, that we're working with Tom Kress and his team on the data side to get Cubic users access to all of that data that's in CASLibs through the CDR in Databricks.
Okay, and I think this question came in while you were presenting, Derek. It says, does this apply to files on the workbench? I get access denied when trying to delete CSVs from the workbench.
I'm going to make an assumption here that you're writing these CSV files using a Databricks notebook to your Workbench S3 bucket, and then you're maybe potentially trying to use SAS Viya to delete those CSV files. I would recommend not going that route. What we've seen for some reason right now is the way that the permissions are being set on those files on the Workbench, which is SAS server side, is not as it would be expected. So if you do create something with Databricks and put it out there onto your Workbench, if you're looking to delete them, I would recommend using Databricks to simply drop the CSV files, or you can utilize the new, I believe it's Unified Management something, UFM, Unified File Management, which is like what FileCloud was, which has that specific access directly to your Workbench or S3 bucket, and you could manage files that route as well, like you would with FileCloud.
Thanks, Derek. Is Databricks already available to start our transition?
Yes, it should be made available to all users. You just have to simply request the Databricks role within HARP for the specific organization, and your account should automatically get created and added to the specific group, and you can then log in and begin utilizing it.
Great, thank you. Justina, I'm not sure if I know there was some back and forth with this one, if you'd like to just give a brief high-level update, but why is SAS being decommissioned?
So there are several factors that influence the decommissioning of the SAS version that we have in CDR. And the one that is quite critical is the fact that it is coming to the end of its life, and the vendor is not going to support it when that end of life date comes up. After the December 31, 2024, we definitely have an option to have an extended support for that version for another 12 months. So we're here to gather any and all of your comments, your pain points, your concerns. We're here to work together with you to ensure that the transition is going to be successful. And the utmost important component is that, we're sharing all of this information now, gathering what we can from you now, and we still have 10 months in the calendar before the end of life, and then another 12 months for the extended support. As we may or may not know, with extended support of software that it's at its end of life, there may not be security updates, or there may not be new feature enhancements or fixes. So just keeping that in mind is important. And please know that we are diligently working and putting together anything and everything that we possibly can to make the transition as painless as possible. And our plan is to gather all of your input, come up with a plan that will help each individual organization with what needs to take place for the transition to be successful. And I'll pause here. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Justina. All right, so going back to the questions in the chat, just making sure I'm not skipping any. If we have multiple contracts, when can we use tables created in another schema? Otherwise, we will have to create duplicated common tables in multiple schemas, or is it prohibited because of data government policy?
Yes, so certainly data governance is important here, right? Because there's two separate contracts. Even if you're working on both of them, they are specific to their own contract. The way that a CMS has pushed data governance is, contractors, everything specific to the contract. So if you need certain type of access across contracts within your database, that can be requested and would need approval of CMS to grant that, so that you can read from other databases and things of that nature on different contracts. A lot of the Quinn QIOs do have shared databases among each other. So, it is something that we can do and provide. It just needs some business justification and a go-ahead of approval so that we can make that happen.
Thanks, Derek. Next question was, Derek, are the notebooks that you're using for demonstration available to the user community to reference back to?
I can make them available. Again, we are looking at trying to create like a public side GitHub repository that would have all of these specific use cases and code snippets and things of that nature. But we do have the ability to share folders to all users within the workspace. So if you do go out to the workspace and go within our CDR PDA QDAS group, you should be able to see some folders there that have been already shared with all users, where it grants all users read access privileges to be able to see that code and make it available to them, that you can copy it and run with it. And I can put this out there as well, so that this is also available.
Thank you. I have found the Catalog Explorer functionality to be useful, but it has a limit to the number of tables it will display, which hinders its effectiveness. Is the display limit 10K tables?
It's not. We've found that there's tables with the Catalog Explorer with databases that have 6,000 tables is very, very slow. Having more than 10,000, we've found it basically is, it doesn't finish to load it. And that's what we've been working, what seems like day and night for about a week and a half now, with Databricks support, Amazon Web Services support, to try and pinpoint the issue of what's causing it. We've been able to produce faster results with certain testing. And so at this point, we're looking at, what that solution is going to be, to implement that solution as quickly as possible, while also trying to make some of these arrangements with workarounds of providing you tables that have the list of tables available to you that you can simply print out or select from. Again, acknowledging this is not a great workaround, but it's definitely something we are well aware of, and we've been working long hours trying to get this resolved. And I believe we've pinpointed some things we can do to help speed that up.
Thank you. Will we have access to the SQL functionality in Databricks? Currently, those functions aren't active.
So SQL functionality is already available. You are able to write Spark SQL syntax and execute it within Databricks notebooks when you are connected to your compute cluster. What I can see here on the screenshot is specifically calling out the actual SQL editor. That functionality is not available because we do not currently have a SQL warehouse at this time. That is, again, on the roadmap. And in order to get to that, we had to go from Hive to Glue and eventually implement Unity Catalog. There's a lot of things there in the roadmap. It will become available, and we will be utilizing SQL warehouses. It's just not as easy and straightforward as turning it on, because of access control lists and making sure proper permissions are set, as well as the fact that we are moving away from the different types of files, which would be Delta tables. Probably more information that you'd want, but for now, SQL Warehouse is not available, so SQL Editor is not available, but you can use SQL syntax within a notebook on Databricks. That has always been available and continues to be available.
Thank you. Can you speak more about the Hive to Glue migration? We're aware that there was impact to certain tables, rearranged columns, missing data, etc. How were these issues resolved? And should we be concerned that there may be additional impacts that we may just not have noticed?
I can speak to that. So what we essentially did was we made a copy of all metadata in Hive and we put it in Glue. And so as a part of that migration process, it was identified that any tables that were created from flat files like CSV or text, basically anything other than Parquet, they had the column orders rearranged to alphabetical order. Now in Parquet, it doesn't matter, but it does matter for those flat files. And so all we did was we went in and we quickly copied back what it was in Hive and rearranged it. The data itself was not impacted at all. It was a purely metadata issue. And once we identified it, we ran a script in all tables that were identified to be sourced from flat files, and it seemed to have resolved the issue. If you're still having an issue with any column order problems, just let us know and we'll run it again on your database or tables. With regards to the missing data, the issue with that is that for some reason, there was a hidden field in the metadata in Glue where you needed to set the location for certain tables, like the physical path in S3 where the data is backed up. Once we identified that, we went through and ran a script that set all the locations for all the tables, and everything was golden from there. If you're still having issues with any tables, let us know and we'll run it on those just to make absolute sure. But with regards to column order and any missing data when you're querying, should be all set. Again, the data itself was not impacted. It was a pure metadata issue.
Thanks, Mohammed. Is there any way I can find the size of the whole database / schema either in SAS Viya or in Databricks? Do we have permission to that level of information?
When you ask size, do you mean like file size, as in gigabytes or megabytes or what have you, or are you looking for table counts? We can accommodate either. If you just ask us, we can look it up for you.
Great, thanks. I think that addresses the question. If we have multiple orgs per contract, do you want more than one survey? I think this was answered, but just to be sure, Liz, if that's still a question, let us know and we can definitely address that. Let me make sure. Okay, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm getting the right questions here.
I'm seeing a couple around Workbench, Nicole, so maybe I can quickly
Sure.
clarify that.
Yes.
So just for a quick refresher for those that might be new to the environment or maybe don't have too much insight into how the system is structured, what you call the Workbench that is available in SAS is really just a folder in AWS S3. And it's just a place where you can store and access all of your files. Right now, it's accessible through SAS and Databricks. We can provide some code that you can run to access it through Databricks. I don't know if we have an article on that, Nicole, but I saw some questions. Just to clarify, with the decommissioning of SAS, you're not going to lose your Workbench. It's just a folder that you can connect SAS, Databricks, any tool really. UFM's connected to it. So just wanted to provide that clarification.
Thanks. Does the response for CAS also apply to the EQRS Redshift schemas, that being that it is in work and will be available later?
Yes, I want to say yes. Initially, I'm not. Again, we have to open that connection up on the Databricks side, which does require a few additional steps within that process to open that connection up and make any direct connections to Redshift available within the actual Databricks CDR platform itself. Yeah, I know that's what I have at this time off the top of my head. I'm sure if there's concerns about it, you can certainly reach out and we could provide a lot more information and details, as well as potential timelines.
All right, so it looks like there is a lot of additional questions around SAS transition and what would be the next steps. So let's do this one. If I wanted to transition my SAS code to Databricks using our language, Is it correct that it won't be fully functional for another 3 to 4 months?
So our language is already available. The connection to the CDR will become available very, very soon. Certainly sooner than 3 to 4 months. Hence the move from Hive to Glue to open that connection up. That was the part of the reasoning behind it. And so as soon as the latency issues are addressed, there's other things going on in parallel right now to set up that ability for R to connect to the CDR, just like Python and Spark SQL can right now. So it should be in the very near future, not in 3 to 4 months, much, much sooner.
Okay. If SAS VIA is being decommissioned, is there a way for organizations that have and use base SAS in-house to access the data from the CDR to pull into our systems and run our SAS code there?
Yeah, I've seen a couple questions around connecting to external versions of SAS. For this, I would just say, please fill out the survey that we filled out with all of your use cases and everything. And in addition, if you have a specific business case around connecting to some external version of SAS, please submit a request form ticket where it will be reviewed by CMS and we'll follow up with you.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Yep.
Do we have a definitive date for the refresh of CDR data? It has been delayed by a few weeks already. We are asking specifically about patient assessment data and provider data.
So that's something, correct me if I'm mistaken, Nicole. I believe that was the refresh issue where the data source owner notified us that they were making changes on their end that would result in us not being able to access the data in the CDR temporarily. I'm not sure if we've sent out a communication regarding the latest status, but maybe we can follow up on that after this.
Yes, that's correct. And I know that we've been in contact with them as early as this morning, receiving updates. So we can ask for the correct verbiage to be sent out for an update for that. And I know we only have 2 minutes left, but I just want to give a reminder that we do take all of the questions that are provided in the chat and respond with answers and post that Q&A in Confluence for everyone to be able to review. So if we were not able to get to your question live here, we will make sure to provide you with an answer. Just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that. And once the Q&A is available for everyone to review, we'll make sure we communicate that out.
Thank you, Nicole. And I just want to, based on the request from Liz, I just wanted to add that if you are under one contract, which is one organization in heart, and you have a prime contractor and a subcontractor, that's one entity, that's one organization. So we would want you to fill out one survey for situations like that.
Thanks.
And thank you for asking the question, Liz, and sending the email.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, for asking your questions and providing your feedback. We do have some upcoming events listed here. We do have a maintenance event scheduled for this Friday, I believe, 8 p.m. Eastern. The upcoming town halls for March and April are listed here as well, in addition to another maintenance event occurring on April 5th. If you have questions or issues, as always, feel free to reach out via email or Slack, and we will be happy to assist. Thank you, everyone, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.